I'm Dr. Homer Rice. I'm the Deputy Director for Yuba County Health and Human Services for Public Health. When we consider businesses and we consider any kind of exposure, what we do is we try to look at the science that we know of the virus. For instance, we know that this virus, for the most part, is a droplet spread virus. It's taken from the saliva and mucus from your face, from your nose, from your mouth. So what we do is we have to look at each business to see what is the likelihood that you're going to be exposed to that droplet spread. The droplets are spread in a couple of different ways. The first way is by talking, coughing, sneezing, laughing, those sorts of things. You have a certain amount of virus that comes out of your mouth. Okay? That virus is pretty heavy. The droplets that contain that virus are heavy, and so after a certain distance they will drop off. So if you can maintain that distance, then that means that you're not going to get exposed. Now, another way that the droplets are spread is by contamination on your hands, and then you contaminate something else. So for instance, you're at a table and you wipe your mouth and then you put your hand down on the table. You've just spread the virus from your hands to the table. So that's another thing we have to consider. Can the space be adequately cleaned and sanitized? We want to kill the virus before it goes. Another thing we know is what's known as an infective dose. We know that the virus itself, it takes a certain amount of the virus to make you ill. So how much are you exposed to? So for instance, when I'm talking, as I speak to you, the virus drops off. But there's a certain amount of it, a very small amount of it, that does stay airborne. In a situation where you're like in a well-ventilated area, something like that, that's probably not an issue. But if you're in an area where you're close to someone, somewhere confined, even if you're 5 or 6 feet away for a long period of time, it's more likely that the virus is going to travel through the air, through these droplets, and they're going to reach you or reach a surface that you're going to touch, and then you're going to be contaminated. When you're trying to stop the spread of a virus, it's not just one issue that it's not a silver bullet. You can't do one thing and just stop the virus in its tracks. You have to do multiple things. Things like wearing a facial covering in public to help reduce the spread of the virus. Things like washing your hands so that you don't spread it back to yourself or spread it to other things. People thinking about separation, allowing the space between people so that the virus is not transmitted, either accidentally or whatever, through touching someone or through the aerosolation of saliva and things like that. And then also we want to make sure that we understand that it also depends upon duration. How long are you next to that person talking to them? Talking to somebody as you're passing by, walking or something like that, there's not really an exposure. But when you sit down next to them, you take off your facial covering, you don't wash your hands, all of those things play together to raise your risk of exposure and of coming down with this disease.